Let's say you and I were let's be a SaaS technology company, and we're going to go to a couple trade shows this year, and we're going to build out an RFP. We're going to start with what you said originally, the why, right? Why are we going to RFP? What's the next thing we're going to do once we've established a why as we're building out our RFP?
I would start thinking about who else do I know in the industry that I could call and see who did their trade show booth. Like I said, like we talked about earlier, you're on the show, people, you see a good booth, you know what that looks like when your eye goes to it. And then if you don't know anybody,
in the industry, people have contacts. Yep. It's a great point.
LinkedIn. I mean, you can just shoot them a message. Hey, I saw your booth at the show last year too. So kind of like start with your network and then research, right? Do it like what, and then think about, or no, before that, you would think about exactly, right? Like your why, what are you doing? What do we need people to hit on? Reach out to a couple of people that you really want to. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, like time is important, right? And time is valuable. So like it takes a while to put out an RFP, no matter what it is, short, small, big conversations. It takes like energy. It takes time. You're answering questions to multiple people. So like you want to make sure that you're being selective and smart on who you're talking to, because you have to put the time in to this to get the right results back. And so I think that's what we would do with starting out. And then, I mean, I love your idea of like not giving away everything, right? Making people, you could ask them, you know,
figure it out.
What does your booth bill look like? You could ask different companies key questions that tie back to answers you're trying to get from them, right? How do you handle engagement? If they're not asking you right away, you could pry them with some questions. And if they just don't give you anything, like you said, it's an easy elimination.
On that point, you have to make them take you through their process. And I think that helps you decipher who's better, who do I want to work with, who do I like, who do I dislike. I mean, the other thing I would encourage people to do in this process, part of RFPs and the purpose of them is like, okay, you need procurement involved at some companies. Sometimes procurement runs it, which is even more crazy if you want to talk about not getting results, but just crunching numbers. But I would encourage and say part of the process should be going to stakeholders, whoever's involved. So you have procurement, maybe your upper level management in marketing, whatever it is. And I'm asking them, what do you want from this process? What is most important here? So procurement may say one thing, because then I think, well, based on what they say, you have to decide when you're going to bring them into and get involved in the process. Same for marketing, head of marketing, VP of sales. What does everybody want? And I think it's your job then, if you're trying to go, again, the point of an RFP is to go get better results, solve a problem, get a better partner. As the conduit, the gatherer of all that, you have to figure out what stakeholders want. I would go get them, and I would really get outside of the why. Cool, let's create a why. But now, what do each of you want? What do you want to be involved in? What don't you want to be involved in? I would encourage that as well in this process.
Yeah, I think that's great.
So what would be next for you if that?
Yeah, you would, after that, I mean, vetting, making sure that the companies are in line with it, just going through the motions with the companies, right? Getting on calls, getting designs back, getting sketches or just different touch points with them. I think that would be obviously the very next basic steps.
Talk about not being how do you differentiate between who you're working with? I mean, in anything you RFP, there are good companies, there are great companies, there are crappy companies. And if you control that process that way, tough to tell who's who.
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially because you don't know, like some of the people you don't know, some of the client companies that you may have talked with before. Like I said, time, it's valuable. So make sure that you're not wasting your own time too.
I would be asking for like a reference. Send me 3 of your clients and send me the portfolio of work that you did for them.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit of a story about it and give me the contact. Let me go talk to them. I mean, I think that's important. So you have to ask better questions. What are they like? What were they like to work with? What was your biggest frustration with them? What's something that might surprise them about us, right? So like, I think you have to navigate that. Like those references are important. Nobody's perfect, but I think you're looking for key answers and things back that say, oh, wow, that really syncs up with what we're looking for. You know, if your past exhibit house, you had problems with communication and it gives you a headache and you're worried about it. Well, if you're talking to someone that says over and over how great they are with communication, they're on top of stuff. God, that's a great sign. I would be doing that.
Yeah. There's one interesting thing too, that what I would be doing is always have like your list of like what you need, right? Making sure that you fully understand what the company does. For example, I had somebody, I was talking to them the other day. They didn't really put together like a formal RFP, but they were looking for a
Yeah.
new company. And when I eventually talked to them, they said, they were like, honestly, like straight up, Mollie, like we kind of messed up in our process. They said like the people, like we have a design that we really like. It's not all the way there yet, but we have spent time and money, like we paid to get this design done. And then they were like, we just got design happy. And then these people, we don't feel comfortable or confident that they can build this out and execute all of our trade shows. This is like a big trade show program, but a big trade show program. They've been around the block. They know what they're doing at trade shows. And they got in a position where they got stuck, where they got design happy. And then they're reaching back out to people because they feel like they are not confident in who they've reached out to. And that, I mean, they basically said like, we wish we did more research and found we might have not been down this path with design because now they can't build it for us and we're not confident that they can store and do all the logistics up to our standards. So that was interesting. So making sure that you do fully understand it. Cause like I said earlier, and we've been saying like, you can get happy over design, but like that is just on a piece of paper. It's on a computer. That's not what the real thing will look like. So making sure you fully understand and ask questions if you're confused.
I think that's a great example, right? And I think for what you're saying, like, I mean, look, having been in this industry for a while now, I understand the importance of creativity. I understand the importance of design, but design is subjective.
Yeah.
It's emotional. It's sometimes it plays even further into what we're suggesting that people do in their RFPs. Stop rushing to design, stop voting based on design, and make companies take you through a process. Make them learn your pain points, make them explain their solutions to your pain points, get references on them, talk to customers about them, so you can really learn who these people are bidding on your business and are you finding them fit? Because at the end of the day, the companies that have the most success with trade shows, events, brand activations are companies that have long-standing partnerships. It's interesting, and I don't want to like downplay it, right? But it's just all the years of doing this is I know design is important. It does. It sells. There's times where you have a couple conversations, you develop rapport. Hopefully you're building trust. You're answering their questions. And then you show them something and you're like, hey, they're like, oh God, this is it. There's no better feeling being an exhibit house or an event like there's no better feeling than that. When you visually show somebody something and they melt and they're like, this is amazing. There is no better feeling. It's a great feeling. But I think there comes a price for putting too much weight in that bucket when you're first looking for somebody. When you're first looking for that partnership, I cannot stress enough what I think how important process truly is. You have any other examples of RFPs, maybe something that frustrated you or that you just kind of like thought wasn't really done well, or maybe not giving the buyer going out to RFP the best chances at success?
Yeah. So I have another interesting one this year too. We talked to them, big company, I think they do like 3 or 4 big shows a year. And they were pretty vague on like emails. They wanted to jump on a call, which is completely fine. I got the basics of information, how many shows, when they're looking to change partners and everything like that. And then long story short, get on a call with them. And they were basically just going out to an RFP for design only. So their current partner that they work with is not giving them enough creativity or different designs back. And so they're going out to other exhibit houses solely for just design with giving, like, they're not leaving their current partner. So their current partner would take over the booth after you've designed it. They did say that they would give the other, or like the new exhibit houses, a chance to build it if the price was right. But then the incumbent would take over all the logistics because they've been working with them for like 20 years and they totally understand all the ins and outs of hotels and, everything like that. And I explained to them, most places should, right? A good exhibit house that's been around that would be running a larger program like that should know how to do the ins and outs of a hotel and logistics. And,
yes, they should.
It doesn't really matter what your industry is, what your hotel is, if it's in Chicago, Long Beach, Vegas, wherever it is, like they all pretty much run the same. They do. And
or you have to figure it out.
Or you just figure it out. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just very interesting that they were like, we're not getting enough creativity from our current people. But we don't want to leave them. But they're going to bid the design that you do for builds, and so are you, but you could build it, but they're going to get all the business at the end of the day. We did not, go forward with it as Rockway. We want to work with people, build long-term relationships, and that's just not, we're not going to just design to design.
Who would?
I know. And people, I'm sure people did. So
they're looking for a design firm. They're looking for a company that only does design. And then you got to find one that only does trade show or event design. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So that, to me, I think how it could have gone better, right? Like you just said, like if I was them, like one, I hope that they're having frank conversations with their current person. Like, hey, we really like you guys. Like to your point earlier, like who else do you have on staff? Like I know the current company they're working with, they must have multiple people. So like, how are they not getting what they need from them? Are they having frank conversations with people? Like, we want to work with you guys. Clearly they do. So like, what we need this to be better though. So then like that company should have just maybe gotten more stepped up or whatever it is, but then they should have gone to like a marketing agency. If they have marketing agency internally, like they need to adjust a design portion of it. Because as other exhibit houses, when you hear that, you're like, oh, well, we want all of your business. So or get a shot at it at least.
Yeah. Your example there, it's an interesting one, but I think it's so common in the trade show industry. These just oddities of what people need, lack standard process procedure, right? What's interesting about that is I had Aaron Kaufman on the show, the guy who's the president of Fifth Element. And he talks about the events industry, just in general, the whole scope of it from a production standpoint. He does like galas and big events, whereas we do trade shows and more corporate event in that space.
Yeah.
And he said it's a race to the bottom. That deal right there is what he's talking about. It becomes a race to the bottom, right? Because you're saying, hey, okay, come in and design me something. The question is, are you willing to pay for my design?
Yeah.
Because if I'm only doing design work, I'm charging you $250, $300 plus an hour for my time, for our designer's time, because you can't get it from the full service company that you're working with. Part of the appeal of a trade show exhibit house is that it's full service, right? And it's what Aaron said that really opened my eyes is he's like, a lot of companies in the trade show and event space, they're bidding per project. They are not an agency of record. Agency of record means that you have a contract, you have an MSA, right? You have this partnership, you're doing all this work. And he talked about with his company, he charges for project management. He's not billing, he's not making a killing on the production of the event. He's making his money on the stuff that matters, because anybody can produce an event. Table throws, lighting, chairs, it's the same thing for trade show. But what matters is the process they take you through, the design work they do, the project management, the expectation setting. And like, they're not asking for any of that. That's not a part of this deal. So it just reminds me of what he's saying that goes on in our industry. I was just thinking about, I wrote this down as we were talking, as you were talking, because I'm thinking about like, if I was in the shoes of this RFP, I'm thinking to myself, like a traditional RFP, I feel like you're rolling the dice. You're just taking kind of like a shotgun and shooting it and hoping that someone comes to the table and you hopefully end up liking them. I'd be telling people like, stop rolling the dice, like improve your own odds. Why not improve your odds by doing some of the things that we're saying, doing your homework, doing your research, making them take you through a process, bidding it out to less companies, but better companies. This way you feel like you have a fighting chance of really gaining a really strong partner. And then the second thing that I thought as you were talking was like, what do you know that I don't know?
Yes.
Like I would be asking people that, like, what are we not doing that like maybe you're doing for other customers? I mean, we've had this happen before, both ways. We've had it happen to us where we tell somebody something we did for, they're like, oh shit, that's great.
Yeah.
We want that. And then we've had people say something where they were like, oh, well, we were doing this with what's their names. And we're like, damn, that's smart. That's really good. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's cool that they were doing that. So I think you should be trying to ask that in your RFP process. I mean, why,
Right.
What do you know that I don't?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Can you come up with a theme? To me, it's like the number one thing. Because people use the term experiential. Great. Experiential can mean a lot of things. But what is the theme? What is the concept? What is the idea? And I think some of the things that people miss is it's not just like throwing an idea at the wall and seeing if it sticks. It's asking yourself as a business going to a show, what is your value proposition to your customer? What is the problem that you solve for your customer? What is your customer's point of view? What is your unique solution, right? The other things you can ask yourself, what is your messaging? What is your narrative? And then from there, that's where you go to find a theme. That's where you go to find an idea. That's where you come up with a story that you want to tell as a company. And then you go design and build out and execute something and tie it all together. Mollie, let's start with something that we've done that maybe you've worked on that you think would be a good example for everybody.
Yes. And I think how you just broke that out too was excellent, right? Everybody that's listening to this, if they're planning events and they're working for their company and events and planning, they can literally write down exactly all those value problem solve, your POV, all of that, and then try to think about a theme too. So I think that was excellent how you broke that down.
You know what's the other thing I think about with that? The other thing I think about is a lot of companies already have the messaging. Like they don't have to reinvent the wheel. You know what I mean? Like their marketing department's good. They have campaigns. They have like really dialed messaging and narrative. And it's like, if you were to just say to them like, hey, what do you want to tell your customer? What is it? Like, what do you want your customer to hear? They already have the messaging. They already have these like embedded themes. Take it and run with it, but build your concept, idea, theme, and everything off of that stuff if you already have it.
Yeah. No, so one that we did earlier last year, and this was just a themed booth, and there was a Canadian dog food company. And so basically they've been going to pet food shows for years and years, right? They were displaying their product. They really just did like big, bold graphics before, like, had a nice structure. The booth looked nice, but then coming with a new booth that they wanted to launch last year, they really were like, okay, what can we do for a theme? And they're in Canada, so it is cold.
It's very cold in Canada all the time.
Yeah. So they wanted to do a lodge theme for their booth. So everything happens, right? It's all this natural product that they're making the dog foods at. It's happening in Canada, less processed, everything like that. So basically they came to us, we talked through a couple different ideas, and we came up about this lodge concept, right? They wanted someone to come like they're walking into like a lodge, a hotel, and a stay. So when you walk into a lodge, right, it's kind of open, airy. There's like big wooden beams up at the top, right? You think brick, you think wood, cafe, because it's cold. You got to get some hot chocolate. Then most of the time there's like a retail space that you can go buy food, whatever at. And so basically we came up with this concept that the whole booth looked like a lodge. So you walked in, there was a huge overhead roof structure that we did. It was a 50 by 50 booth, and it was just from back, 50-foot long. It was a giant wood structure that we put up there to make it actually look like a roof when you walked in. We did, brick pillars. There was a coffee bar there. And then, a small detail that even they went the extra mile. They did printed paw prints on top of the coffee to tie everything in. Then they displayed the bags like retail. So when you really walked in, it was open, airy. There was seating, and it honestly just looked and felt like a lodge, mostly because of the roof structure, honestly.
The roof structure was extremely cool, and it did look like you were walking into a lodge, right? It looked like you're walking into a lodge somewhere cold, somewhere nice, somewhere just like a place you would want to be in that type of weather, right? And I think one of the things that you said that's making me think about here how exhibits like this, how they differentiate and how they stand out, is what you said about like a normal pet company, pet food booth. Like they used to do a nice booth, nice structure. They would put up really nice images of their food and dogs eating them. And it's like, but that's what everybody does.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell a story. So if you have 10 dog food companies, there's no story. It's just really great images of probably extremely cute dogs eating food, right? So whereas this is telling more of their story, right, telling the story of who they are. And I think little subtleties like that help people stand out on the show floor. And it's just not that hard to do. You just got to be willing to kind of take the jump and take the risk.
So we Rockway, we went to Exhibitor Live, we did trade show booth there. And so when we thought about the theme that we wanted to do is a boutique hotel. So then we built our whole entire booth around the theme of it being a boutique hotel, right? The story did not scream that we're a trade show booth company, right? It had that unique tie to it. You had the podcast station over on, one of the right sides, but it all tied together with like a whole hotel theme. And I just thought that was great because we were actually showing who we are. And we went through the entire process that we're talking right now about how do you go through theme? How do you think about it? how do you differentiate yourselves? One of our things was that we feel like we're a boutique trade show partner for clients. And so how do we take that concept and bring that to life and show that on the show floor?
Yeah, I thought it's a good example. It's ours, so it's hard to like talk or, you know what I mean? You don't want to be braggy, but I think we did go through our process. I mean, we eat our own dog food, right? I mean, we did. We talked. We're like, what do we think right now in this moment? What's our value proposition to our clients, right? We talk about what's the problem we solve for them, what's our point of view on the industry. I mean, we talked about all that stuff, and we really felt like at the end of the day, in that exhibit hall, there are companies that were a little bit smaller than us, but there was majority of companies from a revenue size, longevity size, company size, just bigger than us, had been around for a while. We were new. It was the first time exhibiting. And we felt like we are a boutique style trade show and event company. And then, there's a whole piece of that behind that as to why we're boutique, right? That led us into saying, let's design our booth. Let's make people feel like they're in a boutique hotel. And then people were asking, why is your booth a boutique hotel? Well, why sets us up to be able to then talk directly about our value proposition that goes towards them. It stood out. It was different. It was unique. We didn't have wasted space. All of the engagement lined up, and it looked like we were podcasting in the lobby of a boutique hotel.
Yeah.
So Mollie, the one that we want to get to is the chemical company that we do business with, because I think they had a really cool display in the sense that chemical company, and they really found a way, we sort of found a way to go outside the box with it, right? And they did not look at all like a chemical company, I would say, on the show floor. So just tell me a little bit. I know there was like a mixing station, DJ. So it was like this idea of playing on mixing like a DJ does, but also mixing with chemicals to create compounds and prototypes, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yep. No, you hit it right there. So basically they wanted it to be like a party feel, right? So like neon sign, they had a neon sign on the backdrop, right? That was kind of like this brick backdrop with a neon sign, had people come in, and basically you could see on the wall graphics, it was like push the button, play the music, feel the prototypes, right? And then there was neon signs. So it's already catching your eye. So you're like, okay, well, what does this mean? So then you walked up to the booth, and then there was a center station that had 4 colored buttons on it. And that represented each 4 different areas of their business. And you'd come up, you push the button, and then there was like 4 sections of like towers in it. And so then the one tower would light up the specific color. And it was like red, blue, green, and yellow that we had. So then as your people are walking by, you're touching this button, the one it's lighting up, and then it's not lighting up anymore. And that associates the color with the prototype. And then also you were wearing headsets with it when you came up to engage. And then the mixing station where the DJ was playing was putting a silent disco in your ear as well, associated with the different genre of music that they put with this specific pillar. So there's a lot going on, and the senses are heightened. You're touching this, you're feeling this, you're pushing the color, the neon, you're listening to the specific music, and then you're walking through what the product is and how it relates back to the color, and then actually the genre of music as well. So
I love that. I mean, that booth, if I recall, it just had such a cool vibe to it. It had such a different vibe. And I think what it's really doing is telling a story, right? Them as a chemical company, they are trying to tell a story creatively about their chemicals, about, right, their prototypes, their, the way they mix them and the like there's so much there. Obviously, you could geek out and go that route. I'm not going to, because I don't know enough about chemicals, but no, those are the ideas that work. Those are the ideas that grab people, because obviously the people that are coming up, they understand these products. They understand the industry. They understand all of that. So now you're mixing in music, you're mixing in lighting, you're mixing in a certain type of engagement. So that one was really a fun one to work on. When we were talking about doing this, I was thinking to myself, right? I was thinking like, okay, if I'm an event marketer, I'm working at a company and I'm tasked with designing a trade show booth with a company like ours, or somebody, have a decent budget. What am I trying to do? What am I trying to accomplish? And the more that I think about it, it ties back to what I said earlier. I think it is, in a way, it's telling a story, and people remember stories and people remember experiences. I'm just going to remember your trade show booth just for remembering your trade show booth, right? So how can you come up with a story? How can you deliver an experience? So like I was just thinking, like I was just looking around my house a little bit. I'm thinking to myself, like, well, what's an example of a product or a service I use or something that I could think about? Like, how would I think through this? And I have a speaker. It's a company called Bang and Olufsen that makes speakers. And so I started thinking to myself, like, okay, like as a user of this speaker, I love it. I use it all the time. And it has this really cool feature where it has sound modes to it. So it's like if if you're listening to like, I don't know, hip hop music or EDM music, it has like a party style sound mode and the music just sounds incredible. If I'm listening to a podcast, it has a speech mode. So literally it amplifies the speech versus all the other noise. So you can just hear the conversation so much better. It has an ambient mode. It has an optimal mode, which has like, it actually decides what it's listening to, right? It's almost like an optimizer for what you're listening to. But I just thought to myself, like, okay, like what a cool feature. And if you were selling it to somebody like myself, like I almost got the speaker because of it. So if I was at a trade show and they were doing it and they had those speakers out, how could you come up with a theme? And I think you could tie it into somebody as a consumer there. I use the speaker for various things. It's not just something I listen on, right? So like there's a lot of elements to me. I listen to podcasts, I listen to hip hop, I listen to country music, I listen to all these different things. So like I would think of a theme somewhere around like there's a lot of different versions of you. So we've created the speaker with these different options, versions, like tying it in that way, right? So you're taking a value proposition of the speaker. Part of the value proposition is the fact that no matter what you're listening to, you can find you can find a listening mode that essentially makes the experience better. So that would be something as an example. I'm not saying that's exactly what you'd go for because these are high-end speakers. There's a luxury element to it. There's things that you could run off of as well. But that to me, when we're telling you to come up with themes, ideas, storytelling, tell that story, but tell it in a creative way. Tie it back to your audience, tie it back to your customer. So I just kind of want to pull a real life element of something. And that was something that I found that I thought I kind of think through.
No, I like that. That's like on the fly.
Yeah, no, I just thought about it because I was like, how do you do this? I think that's the tough
Yeah.
thing. I mean, people see all these really cool trade show booths and all these, $1 million budgets. I mean, these are huge companies that put out these massive exhibits and they have so much experiential thought and power behind it. But your average exhibitor does not have those resources. They don't have that budget. They don't have that size exhibit space to put on. For example, I told you I just saw the SK booth, right? It's a Korean company at CES. And it was unbelievable. I mean, they called it SK Wonderland. I mean, the exhibit space looked like a theme park. It was unbelievable. It's massive, right? Carnival-ish, right? Theme park-ish. At the end of the day, you can get lost in all that. But what they were doing was they were transforming you into a new world, because that's what theme parks do. When you go into a theme park, when you go into a carnival, they transform you into a different world than what you're used to. Well, the world that SK wanted to convey to their customer is a world that's more sustainable, a world that has less pollution, and a more green world. So what did they do? They built SK Wonderland. The whole place was built, all the engagements, the visuals, everything tied back into sustainable, less pollution, and green. So it's like, I can't emphasize enough to people, what is the message that you want your customer to hear? What do you want them to know? Again, value prop, problem solved, the solution, your messaging, and then come up with the ideas, then come up with concepts and themes. Don't just come up with a theme just for the fun of it. It's got to tie. It's got to make sense. It's got to be conversational.
And I think on that point too, one that we did this past year, same chemical company that we were just talking about, but a different avenue of them. And their tagline that they were going with was knock out common beauty threats. And that was like the tagline that they wanted to go. So we basically came up with this whole concept about superheroes, about the company being superheroes, and then the threats being like bacteria, pollution, right? That's going to mess up the chemicals to knock them out. So those are the threats and like the villains. So it was like superheroes versus villains theme. And honestly, the graphics that they did on the booth were just so impactful. There was a selfie station that had like cutouts that you could take pictures with, but like other than that, the graphics that they did on the counters and on the back wall, it was a 20 by 40 booth, so it was a little bit larger. So they had some room to play with, but the graphics were so impactful and visually stimulating that they were able to really tell the story with this. It caught your eye when you walked by. They were superheroes versus villains. They didn't have to go all out. They didn't have didn't you say they had a carnival ride in that SK Wonderland?
They did. They had an actual
right.
carnival ride. Yeah.
Which is
Crazy.
great. But, everyone's not going to have the money to put that in there. So you can also be visually impactful with just the graphics. And then when they come up, tie it back.
Didn't they have actual characters? Like they actually created different characters for this?
They did for like their teams, like their chemists and account managers. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They made them into superheroes, and they had like cutouts of them on the wall where you could take a picture with them. And then they actually put them on the graphics, and then they made like bacteria, the threats that they're saying that were the villains. They made little cartoon characters out of like bacteria pollution. And those are also incorporated on the graphics everywhere.
So what I really like about that when I hear things like that is I think what it does in a case like that, it sparks conversation. Mm-hmm. That's what you're trying to do at a trade show. You're in person to spark conversation, to have conversation, to be face-to-face. So if you have a superhero theme, right, probably to a person walking out, it wasn't like super obvious as to what the theme and how it tied to them was. But you walk up and you're like, hey, why do you guys have superheroes on your wall? Or, hey, why are you doing this? Or why are you doing that? And what it does is it now makes it easier to have a discussion because you're talking about superheroes, but really what you're talking about with superheroes is the message that you're trying to deliver to potentially an ideal customer. And it ties back. So you're telling a story, right? And you're giving them an experience with superheroes. So like I said, storytelling and experience, people remember it. So you're just, you're being stickier with your customer at the end of the day.
I agree.
The other thing that I was thinking about that I think really is like something that not enough people are talking about with this is like, this is all just marketing. That's it. So as event people, I think one of the biggest problems that they have is having to put a marketer hat on all the time. That's all the time. So one of the things that I want to make a point of is I know most event people, they're really not marketers at heart. Like all the stuff that we're talking about, value prop, problems you solve, your point of view, storytelling, narrative, messaging, like that's all marketing stuff. But trade shows and events are sales and marketing. It's what they are. So I think as an event person, you either have to brush up on it, you have to get your marketing department involved, you have to take what they give you and run with it, but also you have to start thinking this way when you go to an event, because I think this is what it really takes to be kind of like uberly successful at these shows. It's how you stand out. It's how you differentiate. It's how you engage in better conversation, is thinking this way and kind of pushing the boundaries with your brand, your product, your service, and all that good stuff. I think one of the cooler jobs that we did last year, as an example, one of our clients was with Security Central. They are a security monitoring company. So they are like the people that are answering the phone when you have a fire alarm, a burglar alarm, right? They're kind of like that call center. They're like dispatching, doing all that. So through conversation with them, we kind of came up with this idea as we've rounded out, like, what are they about? What do they want the industry to know about them? What is the message that they want? And we ended up designing them a house, not anything earth shattering, but I mean, the trade show booth did not even look like a trade show booth. The trade show booth looked like a house. And then it had like windows looking in, and the windows had graphics. It looked like a family. What was it that with the protection thing? We were talking about it earlier, right? It's like protect what you love or something like that. Like they had a certain
or their slogan
tagline.
Protect what you value. So then when
protect
you said
what you value,
the graphics that were facing the aisle, when you looked at them, they looked like windows with like a family inside of it. And then one area was like a retail store, right? For like businesses, how you said they do houses and businesses. So, what do you value? And then, we did this big custom roof structure on top. That was like the hanging sign that really, brought the whole booth together. And like you said, nothing earth shattering, but, you take a roof when it had like little windows up at the top, and then you could be a house, it could be a business, protect what you value. And then they did the graphics on the outside that looked like you're looking in business or a home. And then you kind of, we even did a walkway, like a door walkway that you walked through.
Yep.
Like you
Everything
were
was
coming
themed
in.
around it.
Yep.
And I think after talking to them, I mean, they were ecstatic. Like they drew more interest. They had better conversations. They drew more leads from the show. And it was so simple. And at the end of the day, like they could have just done a nice structure and put their branding on it and had it look good. And they could have put their messaging on there about security and, you know, protect what they could have done that. But why not take the extra step? Like I've seen it time and time again. It works. It draws more interest. You are there to stand out. You are there to differentiate. And it's like just going up with a standard looking exhibit, even if you think it's a nice design, you're a parody in a sea of exhibits. Like you just are. I don't care how good you think your structure is. You have to come up with a theme. You have to come up with concepts. You have to do something different that's going to spark conversation and something that you can really stand on. And that exhibit absolutely looking like a home and then everything tying into that entire theme. I think it helped them with their conversations. I think it helped them get noticed on the floor. I think it had people, you know, they're a pretty household name, but they still had people coming up going, oh, I didn't know you guys did this. Or, hey, what are you know what I mean? It just made everything go better, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it looked awesome. Another one that we did was, or like, I think little touch points that people can do, right? If you can't go all out, right? A big part of like right now, we did this a couple times last year, was take the logo of the company and make it like a focal art piece in the booth, right?
Yeah,
And
that's a
you
good
can do
idea.
it, you know, extreme, you can do it a little bit simpler, but you know, just really having like your branding. And it was just like in people's face, it was larger than life, right? And then they take them and they can put it in their office after if they want to, right?
Yeah.
So get dual use out of it, but making it like a focal piece, a statement piece to make you like double take and look at it is another way that you can stand out, right? Even just we did a medical device company and we had surgeons competing and assembling like an implant on a prosthetic foot, right? And then there was a leaderboard, right? And then that was like the engaging part of their
Yeah.
booth. But
Yep.
then they had, you know, demo station. So they, you know, were drizzling in a little bit of fun with their booth.
Yeah.
We also worked with Warner Brothers this past year, and they were going to like a recruiting show. And so basically they wanted to just really have like focal of Warner, and they had a ton of different ideas. They had Barbie coming out, right? They have so many shows like HBO. They're just
Yep.
there's so much that they can do. And so we actually took it back to basics with them, and we're like, let's just make it look like the Warner Bros. Studio that resembles in California for you guys.
Yeah.
And so
Because
did
everyone
like
knows what that looks like. It's very,
exactly.
yep.
Right. And so, you know, the water tower, right, their shield, those are just statement pieces for them. And so we did a big water tower in their side of their booth. We did a shield that, you know, stood off from the wall. So it could be a photo op. And then we did like palm trees, fake palm trees that stood out, right? So it was not over the top, but it was simple and it was made sense with the brand, but it was still cool because it was different.
Very Hollywood in that
Yep.
sense. And that's what they are. Right. So like, I
Yes.
think a few things that you touched on there that I think are important for people to grasp onto is one, this idea of taking your logo or something visual and making it kind of like art deco, visually stimulating is always a hit on the show floor. People want to know, what is it made from? What is it for? Oh, that's your logo. Oh, look at that. Like you have to catch somebody's senses, one, you know, smell, sight, right? Sound. I mean, you got to catch people out there. So if it's something visual like that, great. The other thing I think you hit on there, Molly, with the Warner Brothers Discovery piece is like, be you, be your brand. Like, what is your brand? What does it stand for? I mean, that's a big name, right? So a lot of people know, but like, what are you? Right? What's your vibe? What's your aura? What's your pace? What's like, what are you? You have to be able to sit down and understand that. Because I've often made the joke, and I think this is true, where people for years would come to us and we'd be talking to them through design about their booth and like, oh, I want the Apple look. And I'm like, the Apple, like, you're not Apple. Like, newsflash. I don't know if you know that or not, but you're not. But to their defense, they're just trying to give me an example of maybe what they want to look like. But that conversation had to shift and say, no, 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 no. Who are you as a brand? What do you stand for? What are you known for? What do you believe in? What's resembling for people for it? And then you can build and work kind of from there when you're designing something, especially if it's a big brand. I mean, it's always way easier than in kind of like a non-household name.
Right. I agree. Also, to a different project that we worked on, we talk about Publix, how we work with Publix often. And they were actually going to an event outside, and it was called Deck the Chairs. And so basically, this event is that they give different brands a lifeguard chair, and then they can pretty much do whatever they want with the lifeguard chair to create it, to make it represent to their brand, right? There was like a school that did it that was inside of the city that it was in. And they made like a little house and they put the lifeguard chair inside of it, right? So people do a lot of different things. So Publix came to us and they're like, okay, what can we do? We have this lifeguard chair. How can we come up with a couple different concepts? What do? We went kind of back and forth. We worked with their creative team. And then eventually we came to the conclusion to flip it on its back and then create a shopping cart out of it, right? So you talk about like, go back to like who you guys are, right? Like you're not Apple. So Publix is a grocery store. So how can we represent it? And it was during Christmas time. And so we made a Christmas themed shopping cart for them. And it lived outside, had a bunch of lights, reefs, but it just generally looked like a shopping cart. And it was just so true to who they are and their brand.
Yeah, that's a good example. We're talking 10 ways to transform trade shows into a sales and marketing channel. I think something that's really important that I talk about a lot is too many companies view and treat their trade shows as a cost of doing business versus as a sales and marketing channel. This is number one, pre-show marketing. So you're spending $400,000 to be at a trade show. You have a beautiful booth, intriguing theme, great messaging, experiential engagements lined up, and objectives. You're working with a kick-ass partner like Rockway Exhibits and Events. That's us. So you know you have nothing to worry about and your strategy is on point. But how do you get people to show up? And here's the thing. It takes like effort and energy and time to do it. So let's run through some of these. One is to curate and cross-check your data from last year. If you haven't been and you don't have old data, you got to start now. Your first show is your first time. Collect your data, curate your data, and keep it rolling into the next year because that's your first line of defense. The second one is to work with sales. This to me is the most important one. They know the ICP. They're trying to engage with these people, call these people, get meetings with these people. So they should 100% be helping get and set and book meetings for your event. 3 is, what does the show offer? They always offer data. They always offer emailing and things like that. Honestly, most of the time it's crap. It's not good. It gets lost in the shuffle, but it is there. It is an option. And I won't say that every show does it the wrong way. 4th is important. A lot of companies have really good social channels. So what are your social channels that work? Take the social channel that you excel in and run a real campaign. 5 is partners. A partner to me is somebody that has a same ideal client profile as you, but sells them something different. So who can you partner with? A lot of companies have distribution partners here. So how do you leverage them? What are they going to gain from this? And how can you get them to help you pre-market your presence in what you're doing? The 7th is pre-show and during show running ads. You're running geo-targeted ads. You're creating a campaign, building it into an ad campaign, and essentially trying to drive traffic to your booth. 8, when does the show app come out? There's always a show app.
Us as a sales team at Rockway, we started looking at who the attendees were going to be. We split it up by like alphabetical order. Hey, come by our booth. This is our engagement that we're having. And this is why we think that you benefit from it. It was very personalized reach out. It takes work going through the app. If it's a couple of days before, a week before, those are the people that are going to be there that you want to target, who you want to reach out to.
When you're not just selling them something and you're trying to give them a value or sending a personal invite, it works really well. Last 2 here, the guerrilla marketing piece. This is just getting uberly creative. We're actually going to get to this as a whole nother topic. The 10 is to physically mail a VIP-ish type invite, like a physical address. Tough to get the addresses, tough to get it in people's hands, but you can do it if you really want. So if you have like a top 10, top 20 target, people that you really would make your show by getting them to come over there, that's exactly what I would do. My second in my 10 ways to transform your trade shows into sales marketing channel is clarity on your audience. And I'm not talking about the ICP and, it's an engineer that's this age. That's not exactly what I mean. What I mean by clarity of audience is you really need to know at your shows who is actually going, right? Which one, which level, the decision maker, not the decision maker, who is there? A big piece that we talk to our customers about all the time. Why are they there? Why? What are they there for? And I think that's really important. And it's a missed piece. They're there for networking. They're going for education and learning and peer-to-peer. Like those are the main reasons.
Yes, they want to check out new products and see things and stuff like that, but they're not there walking into the show floor going, oh, I can't wait to buy stuff today. That's not really how it works. People show up to conferences with a preconceived problem in their mind. They have something that they're working on. They have something that they're trying to accomplish. They have a problem in their brain. Now, whether that your product or your service solves that, I would be trying to extract that from people through conversation, right? Because then you can direct them, build a relationship, and drive them real value. Number 3 is the exhibit design process. Far too many times, people rolling through exhibit design process, they want a hanging sign, they need a closet, they need a meeting room, they need this, and this is what drives it. Oh, this is our brand, this is our colors, right? Like, just throw all that stuff in the trash. Like, just throw it into the dumpster. I think people have heard me talk about this before. Story, theme, narrative, right? Create a story, have a theme, drive a narrative. You can do all 3. You can do one of the 3, 2 of the 3. Doesn't matter. Find something you can latch into. That should drive your design, your booth, the energy, the vibe, the whole thing. And remember, when you choose a story, when you pick a theme, if you go with a narrative, those 3 things should come from your company's value proposition to your customer or the problem that you solve for your customer. We ask this question all the time. What is the one thing you want them to walk away knowing? They're not going to walk away knowing 10 things. It's 3-4 days. There's a million things going on. You think they're going to remember your feature and benefits on the side of the wall that says you do these 10 things? They are absolutely could care less, but they're going to remember the experience and they're going to remember something about you. So you have to try to control that. And I think it goes into the exhibit design process, which is story, theme, and narrative. So 4th is lead capture and follow-up strategy. Capturing leads in an organized, efficient, in a personalized way so you have the information, and then having a follow-up strategy is so important. One thing that I think is an objective that all companies should have, and they should have a number in mind, a goal, tactics, and strategies for doing it is this. How many meetings can you book on the show floor for after the event? So you're there, you're talking to people. How do you get meetings booked for afterwards? That is the surefire, surest way to develop ROI, hit objectives down the line. That is one of the biggest things for me. Post-show follow-up strategy. One, I think personalized information is key. Don't just scan, data dump, and give to sales, because sales is eventually just going to tell you to just kind of F off and we don't need this, and they're never going to do the work when they get handed the data list because they know it's crap. So have personalized information, label the leads, all that good stuff. Follow up faster than you think. Email, end of day, recap, and then follow up aggressively after the show. I talked about having a grade, a code, an urgency label, something on these leads so that when they go to sales, you know where they go. So you have a bucket of leads, you got 100 leads. Do they go to sales or do they go to marketing? Because not every lead should go to sales, right? Some of them are not worth them calling on, them emailing on, them trying to book meetings on. Some should just go to marketing for a campaign. I talked about setting and booking meetings at the show. I would also talk about a creative and differentiated way of following up with really hot leads. What can you do differently to stand out? So if you had 100 leads and 10 of them are like, these are excellent, ideal, these are great leads. What are you going to do for those? Are you just going to call them? Or do you have a differentiated way to stand out? Last one I have on this is essentially working with your marketing team to have some form of campaign that extends past the show that these leads go into that you're not going to call, that they're getting touch points, they're getting your newsletter, they're getting your YouTube channel, they're getting whatever it is to go out to them. So number 5 for us is show floor staff alignment. Have a plan. When you're bringing a team to a trade show, they need to know the goals. They need to know the customer. They need to understand everything that's going on. You got to have little mini scripts. You should have questions, openers, ways of starting really genuine, good conversation. Give your people in the booth tools, give them things to lean on. And overall, it's just making sure your team and everybody there is on the same page. They understand why you're there, what you're there for, and what the goals and objectives are. Because if everybody knows that, you just have a way better chance. 6 is offsite activations. I think teams should be running something unique, different, offsite. People are only on the show floor for so long is a really good opportunity to engage people in a unique setting, in a different setting. I've seen some really creative stuff. I've seen people throw parties. I've seen people rent rooms at hotels and run podcasts in them, all kinds of stuff. Offsite activation is a really good way to get your ideal client away from the show floor, which has all of your competitors there, and engage with them. Let's recap real quick, right? We're running through 10 things. I just want to say number one was pre-show marketing. We ran through a whole bunch of points. Number two is gaining clarity on your audience and why they are at the event, style, the format of the event, and really just understanding it. Three is the exhibit design process that you go through. You know, we really pitch on story, theme, narrative, and selling your value prop and the problem you solve. Four is lead capture and a follow-up strategy. Really, you need a strategy for lead capture and you need a follow-up that all goes together. Five is show floor and staff alignment, which I think is huge. Six is offsite activations. Get creative, do fun shit, do something different, get meaningful interactions with your customers and promote it and get people there. All right, let's do number seven. Number seven is a little different. It's do more with less. So for me, this is what I think a lot of event marketers are faced with all the time. It's this mentality. It is a do more with less mentality. And I have some questions. I think when you want to do more with less, it sounds nice in theory to say it, but how do you do it? And I think you have to start by asking yourself and thinking kind of pragmatically, right? So things like, does this work and why does it work? Challenge things. Like, do we need a 10 by 20 or do we need a 30 by 30? Like, do we need that sponsorship? Like, challenge things, question things. Two is, are we getting the results we want or are we accepting these results, right? Like, is this the result we want or we're just like, oh, this is okay for now? And I think the first one is big. Are you getting the results that you want? Because you need to get results from these shows. You need to be able to build a business case. Three, do our objectives create the results we want? So you got to have objectives that you're trying to achieve at these shows, and those should be creating the outcomes that you want. Asking yourself, why do we do it this way? I love that question. If we had to reduce the budget by 20% and maintain the results, where's the first place we'd look? You should ask yourself that question every year, right? Have things around us changed? Has the environment changed? Has the client changed? Has the world changed? Hence, are we reducing our effectiveness, our methods, and the way we did things? You have to constantly look around you and question what's happening, because I think those will lead you to be able to do more with less and question what's happening, because too often times we go back to the well. We go back to the well. We go back to what we always do versus rethinking it. So number 8, I put partnerships, and I think partnerships are really key when you go to events. And the main thing with a partnership is essentially you're looking at someone who has the same ICP as you, same ideal client profile, but doesn't sell the same thing. And you have to leverage each other. I think it works when you are pre-show marketing. I think it works when you're doing offsite activations. I think it works not exhibiting together because that's a disaster, but whether you have booths in the same area, arena, send people back and forth, run an engagement together, it all works together. You can consolidate budget. You can do more with less when you work with partners. And I think you get more access to getting in front of your ideal customer profile. So look around. Who's exhibiting at these shows? Who's at these conferences that's not your competitor, but has a very similar, if not the same client? And I'd be picking up that phone without a doubt. So number 9 here in how to turn your trade shows into sales and marketing channel is guerrilla marketing. For me is like this just very creative kind of street team, outside the box way of thinking, right? When we were at Exhibitor, we threw a dinner and we brought in a guest. His name's Andrew Smallwood. He's CEO of a company called Second Nature. They really do a great job of guerrilla marketing. And something that Andrew said that really sticks with me, which is go big in areas where others are not. Like, go big in the areas that your competitors are not going big in, and go do something for your customer. So let me give you some examples of what Andrew and his team do. They pick up their biggest VIP clients and biggest VIP customers in Ferraris at the airport. They tell them, we're picking you up. You're not going to worry about Uber or anything. And they surprise them. They pick them up in exotic cars. One thing that they recently did was they threw a party and they sent somebody that I think won a raffle or something up in a hot air balloon. It was a big spectacle and everybody took pictures. Like, they are very good at garnering attention at shows, and they are very good at giving their customer a VIP experience and doing things outside the box that their customers like, damn, like they really care about us. When you're at a trade show, You have to fight for attention, and guerrilla marketing is just a great way of getting creative and doing it. Number 10, super obvious one. Everybody's gonna be like, yeah. Objective and goals, right? I've done this for 12 years now. I've talked to too many people that do not have specific objectives and goals. Super duper specific objectives and goals. That's what you need. You need to really have an understanding of the beginning with the end in mind. Because if you don't know where you want to be at the end of this show, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, 15 months, 24 months down the line from the effects of this show, like you just can't really set goals and objectives. What, you're going for leads? God, I've heard that so many times. Oh, no. Oh, we go to the show for leads. How many? Which ones? They qualified? Are they not qualified? Get as detailed and dialed as you can. When you know what's happening, then you can set real objectives. Those objectives need to feed the goals that you have at these shows. And I just cannot stress it enough. It's hard to do. It's not always easy to do, but it should be an exercise in emotion that the event person is pushing on their leadership, pushing on sales, pushing on marketing to get information to say, what do we want out of this? And I would say it's one that everybody knows, but it's vital.